So, what is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Traversing the Universe. And I have someone here that I've really been vibing with lately. And we have so much we want to talk about, especially about the universe and everything going on. So, would you like to introduce yourself to everybody?
Sure. Hi, I am Stephanie. You might know me on TikTok, Stephanie Amber07. And I also talk about esoteric things on my TikTok.
I know both of us have really been getting into a lot of rabbit holes, especially with universe and energy. And now, did you want to tell people about like your abilities and like what you found out you had, growing up?
Still kind of unlocking things and refiguring out my abilities, so to speak, I guess.
Hmm.
I had a lot of things happen with me when I was a kid, and I had nobody around me that understood. So I was kind of conditioned to shut them off because it was like weird for people. So now this is like a process of, claiming my weird. I saw this like soul meme, I call them, on Instagram. And it was like one monk talking to a bunch of like young monks. And it was like, as soon as you figure out and own that you are cringe, that's when you win. Like that's your ability. And I laughed and I was like,
I like that. What?
right, I'll have to send it to you. I totally favorited it. But yeah, so I have had like precognitive type dreams, premonition type dreams, if you want to call them that. I have um like a really good read on energy. Honestly, at this point, I'm able to pretty much, not everybody, but a lot of people, especially if it's like very different than me, I can feel what they're thinking. And like, I know that what they're thinking is that.
Dog, that is like me. Okay, so you're definitely clear sentient.
Yes. Yeah. Oh,
Wow.
yeah. It's just like, it's like, I just know.
Oh my gosh. So when did you actually stop questioning yourself and actually start trusting? Because I know for me, like to this day, I'm still like, I don't know, dog. I don't know. And then like I get confirmation later, and then I'm like, why didn't I just listen from the jump? So like when did you actually stop questioning yourself and just start trusting?
I started probably 2 years ago, and it's only gotten clearer since. So like,
Mm-hmm.
as of a couple months ago, like maybe 2 months ago, I've exclusively been trusting what I'm thinking. Like there's
Ooh,
if there's something that's off, like I know it's off. I know it is.
right.
And I've been taught to like gaslight myself my entire life, which is why it's been so hard to get to this point.
Word.
Yeah, so like now like unlearning that and learning to trust myself because I was kind of right. And I love the saying where it's like, why would you listen to somebody who doesn't even know who they are? Like,
Yep, 100%. Oh my gosh. Like, okay, this is like, for example, I woke up, was it a few nights ago? And I've been really, as I've been getting more conscious, I've really been getting this influx of like energy and understanding. So, like, the one morning I woke up and I was like, today just feels different. Like, it just feels really different. And I didn't think that maybe like I didn't think about the weather, nothing like that. I was just like, everything just feels different. And then when I looked outside, it was really bright. Like this was the first warm day of the year. And then you see, like, I'm seeing the flocks of birds coming back and stuff. And then I was wondering, I'm like, what are the odds? I'm like feeling something's different. Like it almost feels like, the summer energy. Like it felt like that. And then I was like, maybe I'm actually starting to get in touch, like with the same thing with the birds are getting in touch with. Maybe it's the same thing. And I noticed that the energy really, like the influx of energy feels so weird, and you really like to question yourself, but you can't deny what you feel. So what does energy feel like for you, and what types of like crazy experiences have you had with energy and like knowing stuff?
I'm like, well, how much time do you have? So it's interesting, and one thing I really find extremely interesting is the cognitive dissonance with people when sometimes when you say like I'm feeling this or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, you're crazy, bro," and I'm like, "Well, you don't even know who you are." Like,
Right.
okay, so that's fine. But a lot of it, so if this doesn't resonate yet, for some people, there's like levels, there's like layers to it, I like to say, because I again had shut all of this off. And I think that all of us are very in touch with this to begin with. If you think about when kids are young and they say, all of these things. Like when I was a kid, I remember all of the things that I was shut down about, and it was like an intuitive feeling. So it was really weird, and I'm not getting controversial by any means here, but
Mhm.
just as like a kid, I was raised Roman Catholic. I was raised religious. And I was like a menace to the CCD community, because I like a lot of the stuff that they were saying, I was like, this is like fear mongering. Like, this is not, you're literally threatening people to believe in God right now.
Right.
So there's like a whole thing with that. But essentially, it's just like a knowing for me in some circumstances where there's that. But it's it's a weird thing because I feel like it's almost not like a comparison and one's better than the other, but because I operate in one way, if somebody's operating in a different way, like being dishonest, I can feel it because I honestly don't think that there's any reason to not be honest about everything because the truth always comes out. Like that's just silly.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I always, yeah, right. So I'm always just like operating in the most honest capacity that I can now. And like, of course, unlearning the things of, self get like second guessing myself and gaslighting myself and self doubt and unlearning all of this.
Definitely learning to live in the flow with the universe. That's something recently I've been learning, is really just letting go and knowing that when you be yourself, like everything will be okay no matter what. And saying the truth all the time. Like I'm actually learning to do that now. Like everything, I'm like, let me just say the truth. Let me just say what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking. And I don't know, as a clear sentient person, I want to know if you experience this. Like with everyone, it's just like a deeper under, I can't explain it. It's just like a deeper understanding of everyone. Like you don't like see them, you see them. And like
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
definitely try and like tell people, I'm trying to explain to people, I'm like, no, I see you. Like I tell them all the time, like, I see you, bro. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, especially like when I see people when like I just watched a video this morning where this guy was like working out and he was on his phone doing sketchy stuff, right? And his girlfriend's behind him, not knowing his girlfriend's behind him, and she's like watching like this. And I'm like, how does he not feel the energy of like her behind him? And then I had to think like maybe not everyone like feels energy like that, because instantly I would have been like, who are you looking at? Right.
Yo, crazy, so true. And that's like a thing, actually, you're right, where I think there's levels to it where people cannot be aware that somebody's staring at them or something. But again, that has to do with like their level of consciousness and their awareness of things, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I've always been one of those people where like I can feel somebody staring at me. It's like even when I'm in public, like I can like I'll just like dart my eyes over where I feel the stare, and then the person's like, because
Yes.
they're just staring at me and I'm like, I can feel it. Like that's actually, so I took my major in college was psychology. So I took a class at Sensations and Perceptions of Psychology. And also there was one of like the neuroscience behind like the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something too, I don't know if this is explicitly with mirror neurons, but for example, empathy, I believe, works with mirror neurons. And I'm pretty sure that it's because our brains, for example, if I were to yawn right now, you would probably yawn. You know what
Yawn
I
too.
mean? Like it would just happen. And that's basically because my neurons or your neurons are picking up on like my energy. It's also like, it's just mirroring it. That's why a lot of times for me too, being so sensitive with energy, I can feel a lot of other people's stuff too as my own. Like that, I can feel their thoughts as my own. I can feel
Right.
their emotions as my own. And it was really, really, really hard for me to discern that in the beginning because I mean, why would I think that? Because we're not taught that, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
I automatically thought it was me, but there's a lot of different, it could be me, but it also could not be me. So, like, for one example, I was sharing something that was a really cool achievement for me. And I was like, hey, like, I was sharing this with like my past significant other. And I was like, hey, like, isn't this really exciting? Whatever. I was so excited about it. And they were like, yeah. And then I could feel like boiling jealousy under there. So, like, I felt it in me. And I was like, "Ah, I'm like not jealous of myself right now. Like, what is that? What?" And
Right.
yeah, it was crazy. I was like, nope, nope. I'm actually very excited about this. So I don't know why I would be jealous.
Yeah. And so did
So
you
it's
get any
weird.
confirmation later that she was jealous?
Oh no, he gaslit me. Totally gaslit me. Totally gaslit me.
Wow. So you just knew it. Wow. Okay. Because I had similar things, and that's where, as an empath, you have a hard time trying to differentiate. I know, like I remember I went to a party and everybody was in the basement. There was like 20 kids in the basement, and I walked in and instantly I felt like this rush of just like chaos. And I was like, and all my life I always thought it was anxiety. but I was like, but going to the party, I'm like, I'm not anxious to go to the party. So why am I feeling this anxiety? And then actually, I remember I sitting down and I started getting this wave of anxiety where like I was about to have a panic attack. And I was like, what is going on? Like, I never, like, what's the problem here? And then I started to look around. I was like, as I looked at everybody, I was like, I could just understand. Like, I was looking for the source after where this anxiety was coming from. And I was like, it's you. And like, I could see it. I felt it. And I was looking at the guy, and the guy's like, are you good? And I'm like, oh no, I'm fine. Right? I was just like feeling, I was like, God. And that's where like later I like bringing my cards, because then after I do like card readings, and then I see like the anxious card, and I was like, I knew it. No, I knew it. And then it's like I could help them. But have you ever used your abilities in any way for certain things, or like certain advantages? Like when you go out on your day, how would you use them on your day-to-day basis?
So I think that's really interesting, and that also ties in with the show we're about to be doing, because that's really showcasing kind of like what we're doing day to day.
Yes.
But it's interesting too, where I think the reason we're like, just cycling back for a quick second, that guy that you felt was anxious, and you know, my ex being like, "Oh, I'm not jealous." It's like almost they feel triggered that we know that what they're thinking. They're like, "Oh," like they're mad.
Right.
And I'm like, well, all right, I'm sorry. Like, I don't know what you like. It's not fun for me to know that you're gaslighting me right now. Like, how do you think I feel? So it's a lot, especially if they're not willing to admit these things to themselves. Like, if it's something they'd rather not feel, and they're just gonna like lie about it because they can be like, oh, how would they know? And I'm like, well,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
know.
I know.
And
Right.
that's actually something that really happens to me a lot with the anxiety. Not so much anymore, and that'll go into like my daily techniques, but I had that happen all the time. And before I even knew what any of this was, like I was actually living up in Boston, which was like the craziest thing for my energy sensitivity, because I didn't have any protections. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know that's what it was. I thought I had an anxiety disorder. I was prescribed Xanax for a while and it wasn't working. And I was like,
What?
okay, yeah. I literally was like, hey, I don't want to take this anymore because it's not helping. And I feel like if
Mm-hmm.
it was anxiety, wouldn't it be helping? Like I tried
Right.
so many anxiety medications and nothing worked. And I was like, I don't think it's me. And I know to like modern medicine, that sounds kind of crazy, but I'm like, it really wasn't me if Xanax is not helping. Okay.
Yes.
And I, dude, like I had gone to like the emergency room with like panic attacks before, because I literally just like, I didn't know what to do. I was like, I can't breathe. My chest is hurting. And they're like, you're fine. It's anxiety. And I'm like, no.
Oh,
And
so have
crazy.
you had like anxiety, like you've had that type of stuff your whole life, like labeled as anxiety?
So no, it was only when I started getting more like open, so to speak, that it started coming up, and I didn't know. And I again, I went to school for psychology, so I was like, oh yeah, it must be anxiety, got it. But like for the same example, where I mean, I wasn't anxious about going to a Red Sox game with my family, but I knew that being in public does that to me. And there are so many people at the Red Sox stadium where it's Fenway, whatever, but I literally got so overwhelmed with anxiety. I was like crying. I like couldn't breathe. I was like hyperventilating. And a lot of it, I think, is because every single person there is in a different mentality, and I'm just getting bombarded with all of it. That's why it comes through as anxiety, because it's like happiness, sadness, anger, you know, all of it. And I'm
Right.
like, like it just is like an attack of energy. So yeah, that's pretty crazy. But like my daily techniques now have done wonders, and I'm really able to kind of shield from it, I guess, so to speak. And I can like discharge it afterwards too, which
Mm-hmm.
is good. A lot of it I know, coming from the stereotypical like matrix world, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around until you actually do it and it works. And I, weirdly enough, I actually did my last podcast episode on this, and it got censored. Like it was already up for a couple days, and people were like, oh, that was a really amazing podcast. And I was like, thanks. And then somebody emailed me and they were like, I tried to listen to it and I can't hear anything until the last 5 minutes. And I was like,
But did it tell
okay.
you that it's censored, or did it just like stop working
No, it
like
just
that?
stopped. It just stopped. So yeah, that was really awesome. So basically it was talking about this, where I was describing, for example, if you think about like something you're really afraid of, right? you'll like almost get that wave of anxiety where you're like, oh, you know, like you kind of get that fear, or you think of like a memory that happened where something was super traumatic for you. Like it brings back those emotions. Your
Mm-hmm.
brain doesn't know what's presently happening versus what's not actually happening and like what
Yes.
your brain is doing. So that's why energetic shielding, like I'm about to talk about, that's why it works, because your brain can't differentiate like a thought versus what's actually here. That's
Exactly.
what it, and that's how it works. And it's interesting because we're taught as kids that our imagination is, you know, crazy, it's running rampant. And in reality, our thoughts are what creates reality. Our imagination is what creates the reality. And I can go more into that too, but I know we're trying to keep it shorter. So like with that,
Go
basically
ahead,
that
bro. Go ahead.
I'm like basically that premise though of using your imagination to, you know, envision that like there's like an energy bubble around you.
It actually does it.
It literally does it. And like I don't, and I do it especially before I go into public. It's basically like a little armor that I do, like a little suit up. So I'll like drive in my car or something, or even before I leave the house, and I'll put on this like little energetic shield. And you can kind of sit there and meditate on it for a bit to like keep it there for a bit. And I've gotten it to the point where neural pathways where I'm kind of able to just do it on the fly because I've done it so many times that it's just like I get
Mm-hmm.
it and it's there and I believe it. So I haven't taken anxiety medication nor depression medication in like months. I'm the best I've ever been in my life. Like it's crazy because it's just these energetic techniques that we're not taught. We're actually spiritual beings having a human experience, not the other way around.
Yes.
So it's hard because, you know, some people just have forgotten that. And basically what I do, there's a couple different ones. One is like a white light visualization. So before I leave or something, or in my car before I go into the market, I pretty much envision like I'm sitting here in like a cocoon of like white energy. Basically it's like almost like a shell around my aura, and it's kind of like reflecting anything out. Like nothing will
Mm.
penetrate except love and light. Like I set it specifically so it's like love and light, you know, enters, but like everything else is out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like a rubber band type thing where it's like it'll just bounce right back off, and it like literally works. It's really interesting because I don't pick up people's stuff anymore. And once you try it honestly and you like give it the good old college try, you know, I know some people, I always say this, where people might feel silly or whatever, but who's gonna know? It's like that TikTok audio where it's
Who's
like,
gonna
how will
know?
they know? You know, because like nobody's gonna know that you're doing this. It's just something that you have to be honest with yourself about.
Oh, what
Hey,
happened?
where did it cut out? I could feel my energy getting like really excited. And when that happens, no cap, every single time my technology glitches. My phone calls will glitch.
Seriously?
Swear. I literally have like, and that's one of the things I'm gonna like take a breath here. That's one of no, like seriously. I need to like discharge it. It's so much energy. And that's one of the things that actually started a lot of this for me before I even knew. But I had noticed when I was a teenager, when I would be in very heightened states of emotion, either very happy, very excited, very sad, very angry, didn't matter. If it was an extreme emotion, I would have things glitch around me all the time. And
Wow.
specifically when I would be like driving, if I was like really mad or really happy, again, it didn't matter, just the extreme emotion, energy in motion, you know? But
Mm-hmm.
while I was driving under streetlights, they would go off. And then they would only turn back on after I was like a distance away from them. Like I would literally short circuit some of the lights outside where like you know how they'll turn on if you go underneath it? No, like this
Yeah.
it would go off if I went underneath it because I had so much energy just like emitting from me.
That reminds me of when you said when you were driving and you were so happy and you literally like left your physical body for a moment. And I told my mom that she was like, she was driving, and I was like, something like that. I don't know.
No, so I wasn't actually like driving. This was weird. This was like in the state between awake and asleep. This was like that theta wave
Yeah.
type of thing. No, because that's exactly what it was, where I knew that I was like daydreaming, so to speak. So I was like, oh, I can just, you know, go really fast. Like I can just do whatever because I'm like daydreaming. I knew it wasn't like I wasn't consciously actually driving. So I was
Yeah.
like, cool, let me just go 100 miles an hour or whatever. And I was just like zooming really fast and it felt really cool. It felt very like euphoric and everything. And the sun was setting. It was really beautiful. And then all of a sudden, I just got so happy that like my soul started leaving its physical body, like astral projecting. And it was like almost such a high vibratory frequency that my body just like couldn't contain it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've been reading on stuff like that where, ascension essentially, where you will get to such a point where your physical body won't be able to contain it anymore. Then you will have to leave it. And then you're going to be in the astral realm. You're basically going to ascend, or your body's going to have to, adjust to the higher vibration, and you will literally like become glowing. Like scientifically, you will glow. I thought that was super cool. And I thought about that and I was like, maybe like like all of this power you have energetically, we don't understand it fully, but all we know is that there is so much power within you that you should start doing some experiments with that. That is super cool. Like
I'm
see what
like,
you could
tell me
actually
how.
do.
What do I do? What should I do? I'm
Like
interested.
like I think you should try just astral projecting, do that, like laying down, just trying to astral project and see like if you could like easily do it. um Try like just going out, like go somewhere and then like meditate with that high vibrational energy and see like what types of things glitch around you, because if you could get that on record, you could be like, bro, like it's in your face right there. That'd be so cool.
Seriously.
And
That's
like,
so lit.
yeah, just try any experiment. I definitely want to see where that goes, because you have, wow, you have so much power within you.
Well, I think we all have it, and it's just a matter of like, for whatever reason, it's like an energy kind of conductor or something. I mean, emotions are energy in motion,
Mm-hmm.
so it's really interesting too because I've always been somebody that's been very emotional. Like I feel my emotions like a truck hits me. Like it is in my face, and I'm like, okay, like even if it's happy or sad, it doesn't matter. It's just like 100%. There's no like
Yeah.
pinning it down. Um,
Oh my
but I think
God.
that's like the key to it. I'm actually working on a book with this right now, but it's talking about that's like kind of the key to it is just allowing, going with the flow of the universe, allowing it. Like if you get really mad, cool. Like why are you mad? Let's work on it. Like right then, like it's a whole thing where
Mm-hmm.
it's shutting that down to like appease other people. That is kind
Yes.
of the issue, and it causes the repression. It causes like bringing it down. Um but I would be totally interested in doing experiments, actually. I've been trying to figure out how to control it, and I'm actually working on a theory of reality right now and how and why the glitches that I've experienced have worked. So it's essentially like formulated by case studies of my own experiences.
Cool.
Because like I mean you can't really, I mean I did fall down the CIA rabbit hole for a bit, but in their documents they were talking about you often can't replicate the type of stuff that would cause this. It's literally just like it just happens, and it has to be like a very natural thing, because if it's like set up, then
Mm-hmm.
it's not the same. Like you can't replicate it. It needs to be genuine.
That's true.
Otherwise it doesn't work. So that's actually something that I'm literally like theorizing about right now. And it has to do with like genuine emotions and genuine intention. So if you are able to get to that place where you can be like 100% honest with yourself and others, it just kind of comes, I think. Like I'm just, that's how it's been working for me. Again, I don't know if it's the same for everybody. I mean, I could imagine in the sense where
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why it would be different for me, but that's kind of how I've gotten to do it, I guess, to understand it more. Because like I mentioned, this was happening when I was like 16, before I even knew about any of this. And it was just like my genuine raw emotion where I was like, ah, I was really mad, and then it would just like glitch lights and stuff, and I was like, oh
I did that. Like,
yeah, I was like, oh, that's weird.
I think that's wild that, to me, it looks like that is like s- I can't figure out a better word for specialty, but like your like strong ability. And I know, like you were saying, like everybody has their thing. And I think that's super cool. You have that. And going back to like the energetic bubble and all that, I remember I actually would do that, but it wasn't a bubble because I actually, to me, I thought making a bubble was, I didn't like it because it would block off all the energies I'd feel from everybody else. And I actually wanted to feel others to understand them. So I was like, hey, well, what can I do? So I did something called the light bulb technique, which is basically I just envision myself as a light bulb and like all my light, like all of my energy shooting out. And everywhere I go, I consciously do that. Like I want people to feel my energy to help them. And also like it's like I could feel them, but not like feel them. Like I could just get little its and bits. And if I want to understand them, I will consciously do that and like connect to each person. But I know like when I walked into that same party and I did that light bulb and just envisioning the light and everybody feeling it, and I would visit the whole room doing that. Literally, the one guy at the end of the party, the one guy was like, "Oh yeah, like as soon as you walked in, your energy just took over the whole room, and you were so bright." And I was like, "Who is this guy?" And it's like I looked at them and I was like, "For real?" And we were all telling truths in like a little circle, and they're like, "Yeah, we thought your energy was amazing." And I was like, I wasn't gonna tell them nothing, but I was just like, "Okay," right? Like I know what they're talking about. So like seeing those little confirmations is what excites me, and so much more. Just like you can't, and I try to express to people like how real energy is. And it's like they understand it, but they're not as fine-tuned and they don't use it so much. So for me, energy is like basic. Like as soon as I get home, I have the sage out and I'm clearing because I'm like all of that. It feels like I'm dirty. So I do that. But others are like, why are you doing that? And I'm like, well, like energy, right? And they don't understand the quantum physics, the science of it. So I know that is a struggle for me to get people to understand that. So what do you think? How do you think people are going to actually come to that understanding of energy and actually start incorporating it into their lives?
So that's a really good point too. And I am also working on getting into my like routines of clearing energies and stuff. And there definitely is like a fine line, I guess, between the shield per se and like you can still totally like the way that I set it up, I would put the shield up, but like I would it's basically like a negativity blocker where like I wouldn't
Okay.
feel people's like trash energy, you know what I'm saying? Like if somebody's
Hmm.
like not working on themselves, I don't want to be bombarded by like, whatever. But I could consciously, tap into their energy if I needed to like do that. It's kind of like how we mentioned with the intention, like everything is intention and everything
Right.
is energy. Um so you can set those parameters, I guess, so to speak, so that you can connect with those people and like you can feel the love and light from others and everything. It's just like as think of it as like we are the moth, I mean the light, and then the other people with like they don't have that light within them, they're the moths. Like they just
Ooh,
flock and like they basically are like little energy vampires without even knowing it. Like people don't consciously do this all the time, but like everybody does this because energy. And think about like elementary school science class, right? Where they would talk about diffusion. Everything's going to go from the high concentration to the low concentration. Like it's going to even out. So instead of like letting people leech off of my energy because I'm not protecting it and I don't know how to do that, like I set those parameters where it's like I can still beam and like give people some love and they can still totally feel my energy, but it's like you can look but you can't touch. You know what I mean? Like you can't have that. I'm sorry. I kind of need it.
that is such a good point that I want to. Ooh, that makes me excited because I was literally just about like before all of this, I was thinking about raising your vibration, and I'm writing a book about raising your vibration and becoming higher vibrational. And so one thing that I've started to realize, especially doing shrooms and stuff, like I would actually ask it to help like give me information. And one thing that just came to me while I was meditating was how, just like how demons feed off of like darkness and fear, higher vibrational beings, they feed off of love and light, but it's like they create that. And like what you were saying with the like everything goes from like high concentration to low concentration. So naturally, as a high vibrational being, your light, like you're gonna have so much you're gonna want to give it out. But then it's like, you don't want to get to the point where you're drained. So how do you manage, like keep your energy and your high vibrations in you, like in your aura, and not have it leak out too much? Because I'm actually curious of what you have to say. I want to start incorporating some of that.
Okay, beautiful. So I'm going to answer that and then I'm going to touch back on how people are going to start incorporating this in their everyday life because like you
Yes.
said, people know they know everything's energy but they don't understand. There's a difference between knowing and understanding, which I found out the hard way. Whereas like I knew this, why didn't I didn't know how to do it, but I did and I just never understood.
Hmm.
Um so Well, all right. So let me start with how I kind of keep my stuff in. So basically, it's all these like mental parameters, as well as what I had mentioned with like the energy bubble, so to speak. There's lots of different techniques and stuff like that, like how you mentioned you do it differently, and you can totally, there's lots of different ways to do it. It's about what resonates with you. But like we
Mhm.
talked about how your brain can differentiate what's like really here versus what's a thought. Like your brain reacts the same. So being able to kind of like encase yourself in that light, that's something that really helps kind of protect my energy. So I guess a good analogy here would be like filling up my cup, so to speak, right? Like I have like a cup of water here. This is like lemon juice in here, but cup of water. And basically you start the day off like full cup. All right. So like I would, meditate, or I would ground myself, or do whatever it is I need to do that would get me to feel in a good vibration. Right. And then of course, being a high vibe being, we want to like give some other people some light and like help them, especially in times of need. But what I've kind of come to understand is that really hinders both me and the person I'm trying to help. Only because if you think of it, that's like giving a man a fish rather than teaching him to fish. Because I can pour out the water in my cup all the time. I can pour it out every day. I can do it every day. But at the same time, those people are going to be like, please, sir, can I have some more? And then it's like
Mhm.
completely being depleted of your own energy because you're like wanting to be a good person, you want to help people, and there's a line, but you can still be a good person without just giving all your energy away, you know what I mean? So that's kind of what I'm trying to do as well, where it's like teaching people how to fish rather than like getting a fish. Because of course sometimes people need a fish, and I'm like, yeah, here, take some energy for sure, like I'm going to give you love, I'm going to beam love all the time. But there's a difference between like showing people that love and like giving it to them, you know what I'm saying? Because at that point it's like kind of also part of a theory I'm working on, but it's like our soul can like fragment in different ways. So like our soul and our energy, our consciousness if you will, can be kind of almost like taken by other people. Again, I don't think it's like a conscious thing that's done per se. It could be, but I don't think it is, in the sense where people are just like gimme, it's just kind of like they latch on to, this piece of something. So I think there's a very fine line between like, kind of giving that energy and like holding it. So what I like to do with that energetic parameter is like I'm totally gonna, stand in my power. Think of it as like a light bulb, like you said, right? So you have a light bulb here, and when it's on, the room fills up with light for sure, but the light bulb itself doesn't lose any of the energy, right? It's just like that's the conduit. So it's
Mhm.
like lighting up the whole room, and you can still like project your love there, but rather than like when you interact with people, like just know that like you're not claiming what they're giving you, so to speak, where it's like if they're dumping like trauma and stuff on you, for sure you can listen and empathize, but there's a difference between like hearing them and helping them and like carrying it, because again everything is an exchange of energy. So I have to be also extra careful with like my social interactions, because if you're in a place where you're getting, trauma dumped on, and somebody's kind of like dumping something really hard on you, it's taking a weight off their shoulders, right? But where's it going?
Mhm.
For me to transmute now. So it's like a catch 22, because obviously we want to help people and do that for them, but it's still like we are still learning to navigate that ourselves.
Mhm.
So, like keeping those energetic parameters and like lowering them when I can, basically. But I would rather than like taking it on and doing it for them, because that doesn't help them either, really. If you think about it, it helps them for like a second, where it's like a band aid, it's like a quick fix if they need that for sure. But then they never learn how to do it themselves. And then they're always seeking external validation, when we need to teach everybody that you can do this too. This is like empowerment. You need to like, and I know that not everybody's there yet, and that's why of course we would like kind of ebb and flow with it. But that's something that I had to learn the hard way, where I would just take on everybody's shit because I just wanted to help and I thought I could do it. And then at the end of the day, who was hurting? Me. So that's
Mhm.
like there's a fine line between like being a good person and people pleasing, I think.
Right. So what would you like, how do you know when to help and when you want to, like, how do you perceive it? Like when you look at each person, when you look at them and be like, okay, like this person, they need this? Because what I do is, and I'm still learning, like what you're telling me, I'm learning a lot right now too, because I do a lot of light work, and you already know me. I do a lot of conscious light work everywhere, and I love bringing my energy and helping others and helping them. Like my favorite thing in the world is going out and having up other people like look at me, and then I look to them and like form a relationship, like even if it's for like just that day. And then I love bringing them so much love that next thing you know, I like their energy's rising and I see it, and I may be a little drained after, but I love seeing their energy rise, and then they bring, it's like they give that energy back to me in a way. So it's like an energy exchange. I love that. But sometimes I notice I'm like, I can't help this person. This, I gotta protect myself. So how do you differentiate when to help and when not to?
So, actually, funny enough, I kind of heard a quote today while I was like getting ready. I was listening to the audiobook of Conversations with God. I don't know if you've ever heard it or checked it out. It's a book, but I listened to the YouTube version for free. It's like somebody's reading it on audiobook.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was actually really insightful, because this was a topic about it, and it was all about free will and choice and stuff. So the thing is, like, I will always, to the best of my capacity, treat somebody with like love, treat somebody with light, and like try to give them the benefit of the doubt. And like once I, can kind of stop, like, I don't know, I guess maybe even not that it's bad that you like want to help like that, but like for me, rather than me being like, oh, do I need to help this person, do I need to help this person, I just will like always be like giving love, be like very kind to people, like just, hey, like, how's it going, great, like whatever, like just smiley, and be like that little light in somebody's day if that's what they need, and like whether or not they need it, if they don't like it, cool, whatever, I just am happy, like, that, mind your business, that's fine, bye, like, do your
Mm-hmm.
thing. But
Actually, that's crazy how actually how we look at the world. I like seeing your perspective and my perspective, because me, I never knew any other perspective other than like, okay, like I want, like I going out and I'm like I'm gonna help people. And like if I meet people, look at them and I'll connect and I'll read their aura and be like, what is their struggle in their life right now? And what can I do right now to better that and help them? And I do that all the time, but I never thought to look at it differently. So, okay, yeah, keep going. I'm so curious what you're gonna say.
yeah, so that's like, it's interesting because I actually have to like consciously try not to do that with people, because that like puts it's like an interesting yin and yang we have right here, but I have to try to do that, like not to do that with people, because I just like will inherently pick up their energy. I will know kind of what they're feeling, what they're thinking. Like I can literally, when I go places, I actually don't love being seen by people. Like I actually don't
Oh.
love being in big groups of people, because I can literally feel what they're thinking about me. Like I can feel what they're like, if they're judging me, I can feel it. Like I know what
Me
you're thinking.
too.
So it's like, it's still, I'm in that process of like not owning. It's 222 my time, also maybe your time.
It
Um
is.
Yep. So I really am still working on not owning other people's projections of things, because what they think about me says a lot about them, not really about me, because like I am my objective truth,
I
like
try and put that in my head so much, like, because again, it's the same thing. Like, I could feel what they're thinking, and like, if I consciously want to, I can sit there and like feel their like the energy of their thoughts, and it's always like I feel what they're thinking of me, and then I start to notice I'm seeing, because how you feel it is, like when you're feeling someone's energy, you experience it as your own. So for me, like I know for you as well, like when you're feeling people's thoughts and what they're thinking of you, you see yourself in that way, like how they
yeah,
see you. And then you're like, then you realize, shoot, like I know they're seeing me, I want to change that. But then like consciously, I've been really practicing that, learning how to look at that, feel it, and not judge myself, and understand that that is their perception of me. I'm really trying to work on that.
same. Yeah, and that's like a really good point too, where um we're always, I don't know, like I feel like we, as kind of at the place we are with our consciousness, we're always able to see how people are looking at us. Like we can see things through their lens, so to speak.
Yes.
And that's something I'm really trying not to do, because I actually, like, you can almost get lost in that to a degree where if you're like kind of tapping into their energy field, so to speak, you're then picking up some of the shit that they have going on, where not everybody's like at a really healed place or anything. Of course, again, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just like where I'm at, I'm really trying to like work with my energy and um like kind of heal the things that I'm already working on healing. I don't need to, now think that, oh, like I'm, weird for having a nose ring or something. You know what I mean? Like something
Mhm.
silly where people are like
True.
stuff. So it's also like for me, I wouldn't love if somebody was like tapping into my energy field. So like I also kind of work on like putting up these little like mental wards, so to speak, where I don't really let people kind of tap into that energy. Um and it's just like, I don't know, for me, I don't like to do that. And like even when it's like a like almost like a filter I can kind of put on, so to speak. So when I go out, I'm not necessarily like reading their thoughts, and like I can almost get like a general like readometer, so to say, of somebody's energy. Like even from afar, I'm just like, oh, you look like a miserable person. Like not like judging. Like I can, like how you said, I can see you. I don't look at people in the physical anymore. It's like kind of funny now because I'm like, I don't care what people look like. Do you have good energy or no? You know what I mean? I can
Yeah,
tell. So
it's so
it's like
true.
it's like a really fine line, I guess, of doing that. So where I won't help people per se, because I feel like that is almost like me feeling like I'm in the place to kind of do that, where they might not even be asking for that, first of all. Um and that Conversations with God audiobook I was talking about, they talk about that, where it's like everything's free will. You know what I mean? So it's their choice if they want to, try to understand this or not. It's their choice if they want to be
Mm,
miserable or not. So I can be really nice to somebody and just be like, oh, like love your eyelashes, love your hair, love whatever. Like I can just be nice and give like a good compliment and like send them some energy that way.
mhm,
As opposed to kind of like doing things without their consent, I guess.
mhm,
Because if they're not even knowing about it, it's like they didn't really consent to it. So I'm really big on like energetic boundaries, and like that's why I hold my boundaries. This is something I never did. So that's why I do it so strongly now, because it was something that I didn't even know how to do a year ago. You know what I mean? Like I'm literally
mhm,
like I'm just like almost like a fortress until I can kind of like mitigate it a bit better. But like I'll kind of have this bubble around me, and then I'll almost put this lens on where I'm not intentionally reading people's stuff, because it's a lot for me to take on. You know what I mean?
mhm,
It's a lot for me to process for them. And again, that's like kind of like giving them a fish rather than teaching them to fish. Where if they're interested in, being like, wow, how are you so happy? How is this? How is this? I'm like, well, like, take a seat, let's talk
take a
about
seat.
it. Yeah.
You know what? I like that you said that because I never really looked at free will like that. Now, for me, whenever I looked at people, I would always read, I'll do a general reading on everyone. Like as soon as I see you in person, I'm like reading you. I'm like, okay, what are they like? Sometimes I'll get information of like if they're a star seed and stuff like that, like little things I'll be like, okay, yeah, she's definitely a star seed. I don't know where she's from, but she's definitely one. And she has these psychic abilities. I feel them. I just don't know what. And so I get a general reading, and then there's only times when I do energy work where it's like I read and see if they're open to it, if they will receive it and take it. And if it's a yes, and I'll be like, okay, how can I help this person without like it going unseen too much by them. Like I know usually it'll be unseen by their mind, but energetically I could tell when it hit them. So I will go there and we'll have a conversation about life, and maybe like I love having conversations about life, and like as soon as they start opening up, I'm like, all right, here we go. Like it's finally time. And then they open up and then we talk about it and they're like, thank you. And then I see their energy rise and I'm like, that's my girl, right? And I see her walk up. I like doing that, but definitely like you said, like free will, like I watch and see whether they're gonna take it, or I really get to understand the individual. So I'm taking note of that. Look at people's free will. And what
Yeah.
are some really good keys to like keeping your vibration high? How have you done that?
Okay. So one thing with the so like just touching on the free will again,
Yeah.
The way I kind of do that too, because I mean, like, obviously we like pick up vibes. It's just like how it works, you know, like you can just like glance at somebody and not even intentionally be tapping in, but it's like you can feel based on where your energy's at, that if it's, you know, lower, if it's higher, if it's where it's at,
Mhm.
you can just feel it based on where you are and where you have been energetically. Like you can make that association with that feeling, I guess, of where it's been. One thing that I like to do now is I just like to let people come to me. Like if they're gonna, you know, start a little conversation, I'm like, let's go.
That's
um
what I'm saying. Like the energy,
yeah,
your energy is gonna attract. That's what I loved in public. Period. I don't even have to talk to them. I just like having them. Like what is it like? Acknowledge my energy. Like when they not, sometimes I'll hear them whisper. They're like, "Wow, his energy is so good," and I'm like, "There we go." Right? Like I get that, and I love like like even if my energy, I understand like my energy leaks out a little. So I love when they just feel it and maybe it brought a little bit of brightness to the day. Like that is my goal. That is the best thing ever.
totally, 100%. So I just, before I answer like tips to keep your vibration high, I want to go back to energy and how people are going to start incorporating it and like understand it, because a lot of people know, but a lot of people don't understand, and that's something that happened with me. Like that's why I kind of am the way I am and talk about the things that I talk about, because I was that matrix npc, whatever you want to call it. Like I was
Hmm.
very unconsciously living life, and I was in law school. Like I went to, you know, like I did all these things that it was like very like mainstream because that's what I was told to do. So, and I didn't know how any of this worked. Like I honestly, I think that I probably have laughed at people who talk about energy things in the past because I wasn't ready to understand it.
Me
Like
too.
I missed it. Right. And like everybody does because we're taught to do that. So one thing that I found really interesting, and I think this might be even part of my theory or the book that I'm working on, one of the two, but it's basically talking about how everything is energy. And my class for psychology, where it was sensations and perceptions of psychology, my professor like blew my mind with this, because this is before I was even into, you know, like energy work and all of that. He literally pointed at, you know, a desk like here, and he was like, okay, this desk is solid, right? And all of us were like, yeah. And he was like, I mean, to your physical eyes, yeah. But if you took like a microscope and you went all the way into it, as small as you could see, it's particles vibrating very close together, hitting each other. It's all energy. It's not like a physical substance. Our eyes process it as a physical thing, but everything physical is made up of energy. That's what it is.
Right.
I was like, "Oh shit, like that actually makes a lot of sense." So everything is energy on that context. You know what I mean? Energy can't be created or destroyed, only transferred. So that's like one thing that is really important, I guess, to how I got to understand all of this, because I was, you know, conditioned very hard into the matrixy, you know, sciency narrative.
I
And like
love how you
understand,
mentioned that.
yeah, I was very conditioned into it, and like I had to unlearn all of this in order to get to this place. It's really hard, honestly. Like
Hmm.
unlearning before you can learn it is really important, because you're taught one thing, obviously your brain's going to be like, ah, it's like the blind, like, you know, if they have like race horses or something, they have blinders on them, so they can't
Yes.
see anything else. They can only see what's right in front of them. So that's the thing, where it's like almost taking off the blinders, where it's, you know, considering things from another perspective. So it's a lot of that, and a lot of when people finally feel something for themselves and they experience something for themselves, it's different than just hearing about it. Because I honestly say this a lot, and if I hadn't experienced a lot of the things I've experienced, I would be like, you're lying. You're lying.
Yeah.
But like, why would I, you know what I'm saying? Now it's like these things happen to me, to my understanding, or for me, I should say. These things happen for me because I'm receptive, because I'm willing to question everything I've ever known. I'm willing to, you know, consider your point of view. Prove
Hmm.
like sure, you can tell me, you know, the sky's orange. Great. What are your reasons? Tell me.
Hmm.
Tell me, because I want to understand where you're at. Like everybody thinks differently than the other person. Everybody communicates differently than the other person. So it's a lot of understanding where somebody's coming from to hear these claims. And a lot of, I've watched like so many documentaries and stuff like that, where I've been able to kind of deprogram, I guess, so to say, that narrative of it has to be this way, where I'm like, well, I mean, I've physically experienced it this way. So like
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go based on what I've experienced rather than what you're telling me. Um
Mm-hmm. I
and I
definitely
think
think what you said there, I said that yesterday too. Like, I'm even aware of the stuff I talk about on TikTok. I'm aware that someone scrolling by, the average human being scrolling by, is gonna be like, "What the hell?" and then just keep scrolling. And that's why I always make my videos too with like science facts mixed in, so that I catch those people at the beginning. I'm always aware that I could sound like a madman. Like, the way I talk now, I I would watch people all the time on YouTube who say the exact things I do when I was little, and I was like I would always look at them and be like, "Yo, these people need to take a seat, dog. Like, this is a little too much." And then now I'm like, that crazy uncle I had at the barbecue was not so crazy after
oh my
all.
god, literally, yeah, 100%. And it's just like not everybody's there yet, not everybody's at the same place, and that's completely okay. And it's understanding and like not taking anything personally. That's actually, if you've ever read the Four Agreements, that's one of the Four Agreements. And it's like don't take anything personally,
I
like
never
it's,
heard that before.
yeah. So I actually, if I have the book somewhere over here that way, but
Okay.
it's the Four Agreements. Yeah, write it down. Four Agreements. And um don't take anything personally, because if you think about it, somebody judging you for something is a projection of their subconscious. Like they are almost triggered, right? Like I mean, for me, I get a lot of aggressive comments for sure sometimes, but a lot of it's because we are triggering people's belief systems. Like we are triggering their entire way of existing.
Especially
So
the Christians.
that's like another thing. And it's actually really interesting that you say that too, because I like serendipitously connected with somebody that I went to like middle school with, and him and I are about to actually do a podcast probably in like a month or two. And he's very Christian, very, very Christian. But like we were discussing how it's tomato, tomato. Like we are understanding, like we are saying the same thing just in different words. And like some people are so hung up on it. It needs to be tomato, rather than
Mm-hmm.
tomato. It's the same thing, but you are fighting about the words.
It's the same thing. Yes, definitely, bruh. I love
So
that.
yeah,
Like all the religions, especially when you look at all the religions, all of them have truth in them, and all of them are telling truths. And this is what I mean by all you have to study religions, and all of them. Like, I didn't study every religion, but I've touched on each of them and understand. Like, when I was little, I thought reincarnation was mad people conversation. And then when I started actually understanding science and biology and all this other things, and I was like, okay, well, maybe this is actually possible. And then I started actually questioning the church, and when you ask too many questions, they start getting nervous. So I was like I was like, hey, so how does this work? And actually, I know a priest who has psychic abilities. Like, he could tell what you're thinking. Like, I remember, oh, I'm about to expose myself. So I walked into his office, and I thought, bro, what if his breath stinks? Right? Like, I was like, Lord, it better not stink. And then he sat on the other end of his desk and said, and don't worry, my breath smells good. You guys don't have to worry about my breath. And I was like, what? And he was looking at me and he's like, oh, I brushed my teeth. See, it doesn't stink. And I was like, well, how do you know that? And I was kind of scared. And my dad's like, oh yeah, yeah, he has abilities. But these are the people that preach, Jesus, God, all of that. So I'm like, and I'm looking, I'm
something
like, you're really
interesting.
part of us, bruh.
I literally, yeah, everything, literally. And I actually had that conversation. That's something that I'm going to talk about with this individual that I'm going to be doing a podcast with. If he says yes, I'm like leading the horse before the carriage. Um, Carriage before the horse. Anyway, he actually describes that. I think it's called chasm. I don't know how to pronounce it. But it's basically the church's explanation for psychic abilities. Like it's
Right.
like everybody's given some kind of a gift. So it's same but different. Like tomato tomato, literally.
It's like how
Um,
they explain like fairies and stuff. Like, they say fairies are real, but they say, oh, they're fallen angels and stuff like that. Like, they have explanations for stuff, just like you said, tomato, tomato.
yeah, and a lot of it's really interesting too because I really try to take everything with a grain of salt per se, like, and just kind of add it to my little repertoire of like understanding, so to speak. Like I always will consider something from somebody's point of view if you can present me with good evidence. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm always down to listen. I just want to hear why you think that. I want to understand. And that's something that I've actually found where sometimes I'll have conversations with people and I'll ask that and I'll ask that further question. I'll be like, oh, okay, well, why? Like, why? You know, and I'm like notorious for asking why. I should probably make a t-shirt that says why. Um, literally, I might actually merch line, but yeah, so it's like why? And I'll always question further because it's like, oh, well, that makes me mad. And I'm like, okay, why? Like, I'm not saying you're wrong for being mad, but like, why are you mad? Like, I want you to question, like, I want you to go into the thick of it right now and like understand why this is happening
And they
because
start getting nervous, bro. They're like, I don't
mad.
know.
They get mad. And again, it's like art, we're triggering their subconscious. And like it's not even something I'm intentionally doing, but it's something that they've never even thought of before. So then they're mad that I'm, you know, poking that little thread there. Um
I love when they start I love doing that. When you start questioning and they start getting nervous, like you see them shaking, and you're like, oh, can you sign this paper? And they're like, all right. And they start like shaking, like they get so nervous and like anxious. I like even the card reading I did. The one kid, I was sensing so much like anxiety, but I was like, but he was like joking, right? He was all smiling and joking, but I was like, I was sensing so much anxiety, but I was just like, I'm gonna just keep doing the reading. And then later on, he told me, he's like, yeah, everything you said was like spot on. Like another tarot card reading said the exact same thing that you did. And I was like, bruh. And I was like, were you anxious? And he was like, hella anxious. And I was like, I felt that joy. So anytime you delve into it, especially when they like, I love seeing their face when you say something correct and they're like, how would you know? Oh my gosh. I'm curious if you've done card readings like that.
Oh my God, all the time. It's literally one thing where it's really interesting too. Again, this is part of my theory. I have like a whole explanation of like why and how this like works, I guess, because even for me, I needed to like understand it and make sense of it, like a puzzle, I guess.
Everything
But,
for me. Yep.
right, same. I'm like, let's match puzzles later. But yeah, so I've done readings for people, and one thing that I do a lot is um the verbiage that I will like speak out of my mouth, like the things that I say, they're like phrases I've, you know, heard or something maybe once or twice, but they're not something I would ever say. But like I'm reading something to them and all of a sudden like it'll just come out and I'll be like I'm biting my tongue or something. That's not like a saying that I would usually say. It would just
Mm-hmm.
be like, oh, I'm kind of like I feel like I can't really say what's on my mind or something, something different. So, but the exact way that it comes out of my mouth, like I notice when it's not something that I would usually say, I ask them and I'm like, is this something that resonates for you? Because I don't say that. And they're like, you might not, but I do. And I'm like, got it. So I don't say that. It's really interesting because like the more and more I'm able to kind of like peel back these layers of the constructed ego of like who we're supposed to be. Um, the more and more it's like letting in this like light where it's like I'm just like channeling things for them and I don't even know that I'm doing it because it's not like I'm not trying to like ego differentiate like this is what you know this is what this
Mm-hmm.
and like it's fine like it just comes out but like I mean it's interesting because I think about it and I'm like well what are my thoughts then you know what I mean like if I'm just thinking this in the same voice as what I think you know what am I thinking what does this person think like I
I
don't know.
asked the exact same question. I noticed I do the same thing, like channeling low key, and you're like, how did I do? Like, how did I know this? Like, especially when it's like images coming in my mind, I'm like, how did that image come up in there? I think all of us low key channel, especially when it comes to guides. Like I always tell people, if you want to talk to your guides, just sit down in a meditation and clear your mind, and then just sit down with a piece of paper and write down what comes to your mind. Like that's like low key channeling that I think we could all do. It's just a matter of being able to like be open to it all.
100%. It's literally that unlearning to relearn, you know, like people are so caught in, you know, that's imagination. This is, you know, they're taught to self gaslight. They literally are. Everybody
It's
is.
true.
And that's why it's like such a block. And that's something even still there's, I think that everything's an infinite kind of learning almost. The more and more, like, I don't think anybody's ever done per se. I think that I
Another
can
level.
another level. There's always more levels where it's like I've gotten to the point where I can kind of like differentiate like certain things now, and it's like I'm still pulling back these layers of like self-doubt where I didn't even know there were. I didn't
Yeah.
know I had more things to heal. Like I thought I'd gotten to this point and it's like, oh shit, cool, let's revisit this, I guess. Like
It's so true. You're always, no matter what, like people will call me confident. I'm like, like if you fully understood, like nobody, I don't think anybody's truly like 100% confident, or else you would like, I don't even know, like you cannot be 100%. You could be like more confident than others, but there's always that little self-doubt. Like even the most confident people I know have like self-doubt and like other sides of places where they need more confidence. And I'm like, oh, here, I got you. Like, I'm gonna help you with this. That's wild to think
so
about, man.
that's interesting that you say that because that literally I just got like an image of my mind. If you ever took like I don't God, I was so bad at math in school. If it was like geometry or something, maybe algebra, I think. Okay, it's or pre-calc. I don't know. I took them all. They sucked. Anyway, it's like that little line. Okay, hold on. I want to like draw it or something. I have like a I have a napkin thing here. Give me a sec. You can't be 100% confident, but like you can be like super close where it's that like logarithmic where it would be like
Yeah.
down here and then would come up, but you can never surpass that. It's just like you would get almost to the line, but there's always like 0.1% doubt there.
Ooh,
um that's like what just came to my mind. But
I
yeah,
like
so
that.
I think that if we were able to like raise a society where we wouldn't even teach them self-doubt like that, we would teach them to trust themselves, because the thing is everybody invalidates kids, everybody invalidates, like kids have the most answers, bro. Like I knew the
Yes.
most when I was a kid, like literally. And then the school system and parents and peers and everybody teaches you to shut that off and listen to what they're telling you because you're wrong and you're just a kid. And like
Yes.
all of the stuff I knew as a kid is exactly where I'm at now. And I'm like, I fucking knew this. Like I literally have to unlearn all the bullshit that everybody taught me to get back to where I was. Like I knew this.
Like imagine if none of that was cut off from us and we had all of that. I thought about that, like all my imagination, all of my play days, and just like not worrying about what anybody thought of me, just really having fun and doing all that. Imagine if we had that. Like that's what something I want for my kids when I get older is I want to teach them to have all this stuff from the jump. And I think like this next generation, like I think like this generation, us and like our kids, this next generation is going to be, I think they're going to be way much better. Our generation is the one where we actually are like changing. Like we're in the in between. Like I would say like we're the 4D generation because yeah, our parents were very 3D and some of them, a lot of them still are. And they're going through that process trying to figure that out. Then we have us, which is like we are a completely different generation. Like everybody says this. And then now think about it. Our children are going to be ones that are fully raised from the jump to be living in 5D. So I think we're the last generation to have to figure things out and have to like go from 3D to 5D. Our kids are not going to have to go through that huge evolutionary leap. I think that's the next step for us.
100%. And I think a lot of it too is definitely the progression. And I think this also could tie in with Dolores Cannon's like 3 waves of volunteers and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
where people are coming here and volunteering to like help transmute this shit. You know what I mean? Like this is part of some people's sole purpose for sure. And I think we are here breaking like generational traumas, breaking ancestral curses, you know what I mean? Shit that like has been carried over generations, and like nobody's been able to be at that 5D level to undo all of it because everything has just been living unconsciously. It's like
Mm-hmm.
the iceberg example where you only see 10% of an iceberg. Now we are uncovering more and more and more, and every single thing we're doing to work on this is uncovering more of that iceberg.
Wow. I love the way you said that. It is like even delving within your own mind. And this is one thing I recommend before we finalize everything is really your take the time to delve within your own mind, because just like the iceberg example you're thinking, this what made me think about this was how so much of your brain is unconscious, so much of your inner universe is unconscious, and people don't understand how powerful your internal universe is. Your internal universe is what reflects the outer one. So everybody, like I watched documentary yesterday talking about how every being is a portal to another universe. And this was a channeled message from ETs. And I was like, whoa, because it makes sense. Like, she was like, so when you look at a lizard, like that little lizard hopping around has its own little lizard universe, and it has no idea about your universe. And you guys could connect. Like, when you go to connect to other humans, you're connecting to their internal universe. And really, you are the same thing as that, just living a different perspective of the universe. I was like, what?
I literally, oh my God, Cassius, I literally made a TikTok video about this probably, I think it was maybe a year ago. And I literally was just kind of like thinking out loud. And I was like, you ever think that like you drive by somebody's house and like they're living an entirely different life that you know nothing about? Like they might know you, but you might know them, but you might not. And like it's like literally their universe and your universe. Sometimes they overlap, but not always. And like it's that one chance encounter. It's like a whole myriad. And I love that saying where it's like everybody's a portal to a different universe. I think that's 100% true. And briefly, if you're interested too, we can talk about another time even, but a mutual of mine from TikTok, her name is also coincidentally Stephanie. Yeah, it's weird. We're like the same person. It's really weird. But we were talking about this and like we both have experiences where we have woken up in like parallel life versions of ourselves. Like we have woken up in other timelines and like not known it. Like I'm very unconscious of it until I like actually wake up here and I'm like, oh, that's fucking weird. But she
Whoa.
like does it consciously and she like will hop around and shit. And like we are
How
just
does
talking.
that work?
So I literally hold on, I have a book. It's over there. I have so many books. It's called Parallel Worlds. I'm pretty sure it's Michio Kaku is the author, and he's a quantum physicist, and he talks about parallel worlds and the multiverse and how this works and wormholes and time paradoxes and all of this where like we are just one universe of many right now. And
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting where I don't know specifically if it's like we're all living in an infinite amount of timelines, which I also believe. But now that you say it like that, it's like, what if I'm tapping into somebody else's version of me? What if I'm waking up in that reality of like me in somebody else's memory or like their perception? You know what I mean?
Dog. That makes so
Yeah.
okay, so wow. So what did you say again? You're like everybody, so the way other people see you is their perception of another version of you in their universe.
Yeah, because think about it, like there literally nobody will have the same version of you as you. Everybody has an entirely different perception of you. An entirely different version of you exists in every single person's mind. You could be the hero in one story and the villain in another. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's totally up to that person's perception.
Wow, that is amazing. Okay, I'm getting mind blown tonight. So, what do you recommend? What is some last things you have to say for the last like 5 minutes? What do you have to say to people, and what do you really want people to understand?
So I just want to touch really quick on a question that you had asked that I
Go
hadn't
ahead.
answered yet. Where it was things that I can do to keep myself high vibrational. Do high vibrational things. So that's like short and simple, obviously, but going a little bit more into it, where everything's a frequency match. Like everything is energy. So if you're vibrating like say you want to be happy, you want to be healthy, you want to you want to do all of this and like right now you're not that, you're in a really low mood, you're doing all this whatever. Think about your habits, think about what you're doing that's contributing to that as keeping you in that vibrational match. Like I mean, even me, for example, I used to have like a smoking habit. Like I literally would do things that like would very much lower my vibration. And like I was, using nicotine as like a crutch to, like deal with emotions and stuff like that, where rather than just kind of figuring it out and processing that, I would use that crutch and it would keep me down. The
Mm.
media I was watching, negative, fear-based, keeping me down. So stop doing all of those things, stop doing the things that keep you down and do things that make you happy. It's not going to be the same for everybody, but like find your soul purpose. And like a lot of people didn't know, I didn't know what that was, a lot of people don't know what that is, but think about what it was when you were a kid. Think about the things that made you so happy as a kid, and like that's where we need to go as a society. We need to go back to that inner child that was literally gaslit from get-go. Like we knew a lot, and our sole purpose has so much to do with the things that we thought as kids. Like things that you felt as a kid, tap back into that version of yourself. Like be like, hey,
Yes.
act as like your inner child's like big sister, big brother, big whatever. Like just be like, hey, I'm really sorry. Honestly, I'm sorry for not knowing to not gaslight you. I'm sorry that this happened. Like I'm here with you now. Like let's like make this work. And I saw it was like a one of those conscious memes on Instagram, but it was this video of this guy where he was like reenacting, you know, his inner child kind of like sitting here scared because everybody's making fun of him, X, Y, and Z. And it's like me as an adult knowing like I'm not taking any of that shit anymore. And it's like reintegrating that part of you, like being that cringe part of you that people are like making fun of. And it's like, well, why are you making fun of it? Oh, because other people made fun of you for that. So now you're projecting your unhealed traumas on me. No, like I'm happy with who I am. I'm sorry that you're not happy with who you are. I'm sorry that you have to pretend to be somebody else. So that's where it is. And if everybody can be honest with themselves and like understand, like, oh shit, that is actually what I'm doing, we would all just be so much more healed on like an ongoing level and be more accepting of other people that are just different than us, because the entirety of it is like we are all fractals of the same, like the collective consciousness. We are all individuations of source experiencing this reality in an entirely different way. So the
Hmm.
point is like nobody's going to see everything exactly the same way as you do, but the point is to like understand where people are coming from and like know that they're probably doing their best at every point. Like I don't think anybody's ever really intentionally just being an awful person. Like I think sometimes it's our perception of like, well, why do I think they're being an awful person? What
Hmm.
about this? What about that? You know what I mean? So a lot of it is understanding your perspective, but also understanding other people's perspectives too. Where, you know, like we mentioned, everybody has a different version of like I'm a different person in every single person's, you know, reality 100%.
Hmm.
And it's just kind of understanding that what they, you know, say about you, what somebody says about you doesn't mean that is you. Like that's not an objective truth. And that's something that I think, touching back really quick on you talking about like our generation of children, like our kids, they'll like I also would love for them to, you know, grow up and understand and like have the free reign to be who they are and not be like, oh, stop that, oh, that's whatever, you know what I mean? Like obviously different, there's like a fine line between things, but at the same time it's like
Yes.
giving them the free reign to be who they are rather than just
Hmm.
be like, "Ugh, that's weird, that's fake, you're making that up," you know what I mean? So to the degree where they're able to learn all of that until they can get a solid basis on knowing who they are, so when other people are projecting shit at them, like they're not taking it on, they're not assimilating it into their personality, because that's not who they are. Like you know who you are, I'm going to let you figure out who you are, let's
Hmm.
figure that out. But like you're not going to start from an early age like learning, you know, what other people think of you is true, because it's not.
Yes, I love that. And I think what I'm going to take away from this the most is the fact, because I think too much sometimes, and I always think about how, everybody has their own internal universe. And now before I heard the channeling, I always thought about this, but I didn't really think it was like something that people would say. So I looked and I was like, when she said that, I was like, bruh, like legit, like everybody has their own. Think about it. So me, I have my world, my universe. As soon as as soon as we're done this meeting, I'm gonna turn off this computer and go about my life and do what I want to do. But I'm like the main character of my life. But then when you turn off your computer, you're gonna go off and be like, "Ah, all right, let me go make some noodles," and then you're gonna go out and then you're gonna live your life. And so it's like looking at it, it's like, wow, man, like, and really, I like how you said you can't take nothing personally, because you can't, like, okay, so you don't like me, but that's not, you don't like me because you don't like me. You don't like me maybe because of your, really it's your perception of me and your understanding of me. So it's looking at it like that. You are expanding your whole entire awareness of existence and understanding how everything works.
I always say you're the main character of your own life. Like, why would you let a side character tell you what to do? You know what I mean?
Thank you so much for appearing on this show. I cannot wait to post this. There is so much good knowledge.
Thank you so much for having me. This was literally awesome. I'm also probably going to post this to my page if that's cool too. I thought this was a really great interview and really helpful for hopefully a lot of people.
I will see you guys on the next episode where we're going to talk more about ETs and all of this. You guys get me mad excited, but I will see you guys soon. All right. Peace out.